everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I am so excited that you've taken a little bit of time out of your day to join us. We are going to be going over the 3 essential systems for business growth. My name is Hannah Hood. I am a virtual CFO with Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. I'll be facilitating this webinar today. I'll be hanging out in the background, helping answer some questions, and mostly just making sure that things stay on track for us. Next item on our agenda is we've got a few little housekeeping items that we want to address. Please use the Q&A function in Zoom during this session. There will be a Q&A time at the end of the webinar. I'll be sure to keep track of those. That way we can make sure that your questions get answered. And if there's anything that I can answer live during the webinar, I'll be sure to do that. Replay slides and the email with all this information will be sent out to you by tomorrow as well. And next on our list, I just want to give you a little bit of background about Summit as a firm. We started as a traditional CPA firm in 2002. In 2004, really before the industry was really doing this, we started offering CFO and back office accounting services. And then we went to a fully distributed firm in 2013, again, largely before a lot of people in the industry were doing that. In 2022, we merged with a regional firm out of St. Louis named Anders CPA and Advisors. And now we have rebranded ourselves as Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. And we have a team that works hybrid out of the St. Louis area, but we also still are fully distributed for a lot of our outsourced accounting services team. So next up, I want to introduce you to our presenter. Our presenter today is Josh Fonger. He is the founder and CEO of WTS Enterprises. And I'm going to let Josh tell you a little bit more about himself.
All right. Thank you, Hannah, for the introduction. And yeah, thanks for putting this on. Thank you to Summit Virtual CFOs by Anders. Excited to be here. And what's funny is you're given that presentation. I don't know if I told you, I have actually an accounting client of mine who also has a company named Summit, who's also in the Chicago area. So how about that?
That's not confusing at all.
Not confusing at all, but he's not by Anders, but he did know of you all. So
awesome.
Yeah, how about that? All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. And for those watching the recording, as you can see, we're talking about the 3 essential systems for business growth. And I'm your host, Josh Fonger. You can see the website URL there, WTSenterprises.com. Certainly, if you want to find out more about my company and what I do, you can always go there during this session today. And I will start off with an icebreaker question. So I can't actually see the chat, but I know that Hannah can. And the icebreaker question is, who will win the race? So I focus a lot on business systems, but just to kind of get you thinking abstractly about it, who do you think would win? We have the 16-year-old driver with the performance sports car there. We'll just assume it's an automatic, not a manual. And then we have the race car driver with the the junkie car right there, which probably runs but not so fast. So who do you think would win the race?
I'm glad you clarified that about the teenager and it being an automatic and not a manual, because I think that would be a given if it was a manual in terms of the teenager with that vehicle. That's for
exactly. Sure. Yeah, exactly. Well, and just because I can't see the answers, the answers I usually get is, hey, the race car driver, because he's professional, he's got more experience, he's going to, have better techniques. He's going to be basically, bred to win a race in driving. But what I want you to see during this presentation is actually what matters more than the person per se is the machine, right? The machine, the business machine that you build in this case. And so since the 6-year-old has the prerequisites, he's got 2 arms, 2 legs, he can see, he evidently has his driver's license, so he knows the basics of driving. All he's got to do is sit there and push the pedal down, and he's going to beat the race car driver every single time because his vehicle runs smoother, runs faster. It's going to go 0 to 60. Let's just say, even if it goes slow, maybe in 5 seconds, the other guy might take, 40 seconds to make it to 60 miles an hour, right? If he ever gets there. So the machine, the vehicle is going to be what matters more. And that's a lot of what my business does is we help you build a business machine that's a high performance machine that's going to make it so average folks can do really well. And what do you know? The great employees, the professional drivers, they actually want to work for the better machine because it wins more often. And they stick around longer too, because if you have a high performance machine, you keep winning, good people want to stay, and there's typically more profit, so you can pay them more too. Whereas if you have a low performance machine, you're going to continuously lose, and you're not going to have a lot of extra profit. It's going to be hard to attract folks, hard to keep them, and hard to serve your customers well. And so that's kind of what I want you to think of that analogy throughout the program is that what machine do you currently have in your business? How would you rate it? And what systems do we need to build? And we'll be talking about three major ones that will move you more towards this high performance machine where, as we say at Work the System, people may come and go, but the systems stay. So if you're investing in your systems, you're investing in the asset that's going to ultimately take your business to that proverbial next level, whatever that might be. So the problems that we're solving today are a couple fronts. One, whenever we work with companies, and I'll put the book up here, Work the System, right here. Whenever we're working with companies, we're working with business owners that are usually stuck in the day-to-day of the business, typically working too many hours, typically stressed out, usually like this guy right here. And they're trying to find a way out, but they just can't work any more hours. They don't have much on the bottom line to work with. And they're feeling the weight of the business on their shoulders, wearing too many hats, can't delegate, all those things. And so if that's you, then you're in the right place. And if that's you and you have higher ambitions to grow your business, to possibly sell your business one day, pass it down, open up new locations, new offices, then the methodology that we teach is going to help you get there. And during this session, we'll be highlighting both the methodology and then tackling three of the big cogs that will get you towards that better business model, which is getting more leads in the front end, servicing your client better at the sales aspect, and then servicing them better at the final aspect, which is to make more profit. So more leads, more sales, more profit. Those will be the big systems. And of course, there's subsystems that lead to that, which we can talk about maybe in the Q&A section if you all want to. Because I do work with a lot of design agencies, SEO firms, website developers, advertisers, folks in the digital marketing agency arena, a lot of my clients. And so today I'll be sharing with you systems they built that maybe you can apply, because that should be a direct alignment. All right. So a quick 1 minute about the author of the book, Work the System, and me. So Sam Carpenter is the author of the book. If you've not checked out the book, I certainly invite you to do that. Sam Carpenter gives away the first 4 chapters on his website, workthesystem.com. And then I give away the summary of the book at my website, WTSenterprises.com. But we work closely together. He and I are actually recording a podcast tomorrow about working procedures. But essentially, he wrote this book about how to mechanically grow your business so you can make more and you can do it with less effort. And I'll share with you a little bit about his story that's in the book on the next slide and how he made that happen. But the book's in the 4th edition. It's been around since 2008. We've had, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of people have read the book or aware of the book, but it has quite a cult following for those people who are aware of it and are into systems for the business. And then for me, I started business consulting after I got my undergraduate in architecture and my master's in business. Started consulting, I guess when I was in my mid-20s, about 15 years ago. And then after I've been flying around helping companies with their inside sales and outside sales and their financial forecasts and their cultural redesigns and help them through bankruptcy and you name it, kind of being the everything consultant for an industry, flooring stores. I met Sam Carpenter a little over 10 years ago and realized that he had a methodology that was simple, that would work for a lot of my clients, and also had a technique that I wasn't using, which was documenting the infrastructure or the systems of your business. Because the problem that I was having with my consulting is that the clients would get the results when I was working with them, but then as I would phase out of those relationships, give it 6 months or a year, those people I trained would leave or they wouldn't be there anymore. And then those bad habits would come back into the business and they're right back to where they started. because we didn't document the systems when I was with them. So that's a little bit about me. I've been working with Sam, I guess, over 10 years now, and I've had over 1,000 coaching and consulting clients, sharing with you what I'm going to share during this presentation. All right, now to the backstory. So the quick summation of the book and the premise of the book is that this is actually a picture of Centratel, the business that the book is written about. And at Centratel, Sam Carpenter was working 80 to 100-hour work weeks, as detailed in the book, because it was a 24/7 answering service. And so he would literally stay there all day, all night when things were getting really bad. And this is after 15 years of working in the business. And then one night, in the middle of the night, he had this dream/vision where he saw his business laid out on a table, and he saw all the pieces of his business separated on the table. And as he was thinking about his business, he realized he couldn't fix the business, but he could fix one of these pieces over here, and he could fix a piece over there. And he thought, what if I fixed each of these individual pieces, put them back together? Would I have a perfect business? And that was kind of the genesis of the work the system method at that time. Now, while he's having that division, he was also in the middle of one of his worst weeks. He wasn't going to be able to make payroll. He thought he was going to essentially lose the business. But he was able to figure out how to make payroll. He was able to start to implement one of his first systems, which back then, and this would have been, I don't know, year 2000, was a system to deposit checks into the bank, because he used to be collecting physical checks, hundreds of them, and then bringing them to the bank several times a week. And he realized if he actually documented a system for doing that, they wouldn't lose checks and he wouldn't have to do it. And then after he documented that system, he ended up to someone else. Of course, they do it differently now, but he was able to free up about, 3 hours of his week every week by documenting that system. And then he realized that if he just kept going with getting each system of his business documented and perfected, his team would be able to do it, and he would be able to focus on business growth. So that's what he did. There's several other core documents I'm going to go through that are fundamental to the methodology, but ultimately he went from a 100-hour work week down to 2 hours a month. And of course, his income has gone up at this point and be 100 times. So it massively grew the size of business, his profitability, his quality, and ultimately his freedom. And so that's why people are attracted to the book and to the methodology that we'll be talking about today. And it all starts with this thing that Sam Carpenter's big on explaining. If you ever saw him on a podcast or read about in the book, is the systems mindset. So the first thing is not just go write some procedures. Right? There's plenty of companies who write procedures where no one follows them, they don't work, they don't stick, and the company doesn't grow and scale. But the first thing has to be the owner and the leadership and the team all thinking that their company is comprised of a collection of systems. And if they work those systems, their company will have better results. So it's not about the results, it's about the systems that produce the results. And so that's the beginning, because if you look outside, the sun goes up, the sun goes down. You go to sleep, you wake up. Like there's repeatable things. You turn your car on, you head to work, you turn your car on, you head back from work. And so if you notice the systems of your life, of your business, and you're able to get an outside view of how you and everyone else in your business operates, you can dissect those separate pieces and make those pieces perfect. And that's a lot of what I do with coaching and consulting, is help people separate the pieces of business, perfect them so they can scale and improve and grow. That's the first piece, is making sure people don't just rush off to say, I like this idea, I'm going to write some procedures and my team will just magically follow them. The answer is no, they won't. And your procedures will not take you where you want to go if you're not laying out some of these fundamentals, which I'll get to on the next slide. All right, so the WTS fundamentals, of course, they're in the book. You can read about it there. But very quickly, it is the systems mindset. But beyond that, you have to actually put things tangibly, because your team can't read your mind. And for you and everyone else you work with to go in a straight line, to be linear, to be efficient, to be aligned, you actually need to know where you're going. Pretty obvious. It's called the strategic objective. And so we help our clients first, and I'll share with this in case studies, first identify where they're going to go and how they're going to get there. And so once they have that clear strategic document, then they need to know the principles and the guidelines and the values that their team and their culture need to embody to make the right decisions to get there, right? These are called general operating principles. And then once they have these principles that are embodied within the team, they move on to the next core document, which is working procedures. And then working procedures detail how the work is done. So the recipes for how to do each thing that happens in your business. So if someone calls you on the phone, how do you answer the phone? Now, everyone in your business already answers the phone, or they already answer email, or they already do the things they do. So the systems are there, but those systems haven't been worked yet, right? They haven't been documented. They haven't been improved. They haven't been optimized. They haven't been automated. They haven't been thought about in a way that can actually maximize the result of each of those activities, making it higher quality, more scalable, easier to transfer, train, cross-train, and the list goes on and on. And so then we help companies with the working procedures. Beyond the working procedures, once you have that aspect in your business, of course, you're going to need to bring on good people who will do the work. There's a whole system around that, right? Attracting, finding, training, onboarding, managing good people, measuring their work, paying them. And then there is the investment, which is if someone's not willing to, as an owner, invest in their infrastructure, in the systems of their business, both the time and money, this never works, right? So there's plenty of folks who love the idea, but they forget that they're going to have to stop what they're currently doing, slow down for a moment, and start to build up this infrastructure, both time and money to do that. If they're not willing to do that, they will stay on the conveyor belt doing the same thing again and again and again. Years go by, decades go by, and then they realize, hey, I'm at the same spot. And it's because they didn't actually invest in their infrastructure. So that would be the last piece of the WTS method. So now that you have that framework, what I want to do is talk about 3 essential systems. Hopefully you can directly, tactically apply this to your business even today. And I'm going to use examples of clients that are in your industry that used both the method, but then they focus on these systems and had some really good results. And hopefully that will help you as you're doing the same thing here today. Again, the 3 areas we'll be focusing in are how to actually get more leads or make more leads, how to get more sales, make more sales, and then how to make more profit. So that's, again, the beginning, the middle, and the end of a typical client relationship, right? And again, there's a lot of subsystems there, and you want alignment from start to finish. And if you personally are in one of those areas and you need to be in one of those areas, your company will be, of course, bottlenecked by your time, right? Your ability to be there. And so the goal is to simplify it enough, document it enough, systemize it enough so that eventually, maybe not today, maybe not even next year, eventually you're out of the middle of some of those systems so that they can all grow, and they can grow in an aligned way without you there. All right, the next section we're going to pause for a second is making more leads. All right, now what I want you to think about as you're thinking about leads is, again, this is all basic stuff. It's all obvious stuff. It applies universally to all companies, is that even if they're great at closing sales, even if they're great at doing the work, if they don't have a system to generate more leads, they're going to always be stuck. They're going to always be plateauing in their business. And so what I like to ask my clients is, don't start with something flashy, new, innovative, never been tried before. It's high risk, maybe high reward, but likely high chance of making some mistakes. Is look at your business in terms of what are some things you're currently doing, based on your strategy, the kind of clients you want, based on your sales, the kind of sales you want in the future. Where did you get those leads? Where do they come from? And what system, because you did something to get them, did you employ to get them in the first place? And can you increase the frequency? Can you increase the volume? Can you increase the urgency? Can you increase something to do more of the same? Right? That's always the first place to start. It seems very obvious. Most people never do it. They never get the most out of what they already have. And so that's the first thing is how do I make sure my clients get the most out of what they have? And so I had a client, I won't name his name because I think he's probably referenced in the book and other places, but he had a website design company that also did some content writing for his clients and also did some website or online marketing for his clients as well. And when I first started working with him, he had like a pharmaceutical company. He worked with some churches, nonprofits. He also had some construction materials clients and a few other clients on the side, friends, family, and maybe had like 8 employees. So he'd grown a business. He was doing some work, but as you can imagine, a variety of different lead sources, a variety of different client types, a variety of different ways to produce the result at the end. And so what we realized is that he needed to have a clear strategy to go forward because he didn't want to work in the business forever. Actually, he was one of my clients that really wanted to get out of the day to day. And he ended up, at this point, he owns the business. He collects a check from the business, but he doesn't have to do any work in the business. It's continued to grow. It's probably gone 10 times bigger than it was when he first started working on it. And he did it through this methodology I'll share just a minute here. So once he had this strategy, he realized that some of his best clients, most profitable, were in the construction materials industry. And the way he got those leads was through a friend who was the leader of a large group of construction materials suppliers and sellers. And there's about 2,000 companies in this network of construction materials. And so he realized that every, 4 months, he and this guy would talk and he'd get a lead. And he'd present that lead and say, hey, here's what we could do to help you with your business, build your website, help you with some marketing. And he closed virtually all of these. So he had maybe 4 clients at the time. And I said, couldn't you get more of those 2,000 clients? He's like, oh, yeah, probably could. And so it was simple as, hey, instead of just talking to this guy once every quarter, every 4 months, why don't you just go to him and say, hey, I'm enjoying working with your clients. Is there a way I can present instead of one-to-one, one-to-many? Just do a webinar. There's a system. So he started doing that every few months and they liked it. And then he started going to conventions and they liked that. And what do you know? After a while, he had dozens, he probably had 50 plus clients in the same market who wanted the same service and that he could deliver it the same way. And that's when he started to build out a machine for his business. But it all started with getting a consistent flow of leads through a consistent system, in this case, free webinar, and then doing it again and again and again to the same place, right? So eventually he'll tap out that lead source and have to go to other verticals. But the point is, he didn't have to try something new. It was just take the system that you're already doing and find ways to do it better, find ways to amplify it. Now, this could be, hey, I got 1 billboard. Maybe you could do 3 billboards, or you have 1 landing page that works. Maybe you could do more landing pages that work. Maybe you have AdWords that work, and you could just be doing more AdWords. Right? Maybe it could be face-to-face networking. I've got clients who they go to events and they usually get a few clients. Can you go to more events? So first thing is don't always reinvent the wheel. Start with the wheel you have. You probably could document the wheel and make it faster and better. The next, beyond getting leads, is going to be making more sales. So if you have your lead flow right, then of course you want to actually handle those leads as good as you can. And so I was working with a website building company. In this case, it was 2 female owners, and they were partners, and they were really good at what they did. And they would both sit on a hour-long sales call. And of course, they both did actually more like an hour and a half long sales call because they can never stop their call on time. And they would do research for the client ahead of time. So they would do some research, they would meet the client calls would always go over back and forth, and then eventually they'd close the sale. And they thought it was a really good process because they were so good at doing it. But both owners had to be on every single sales call, and they were doing 2 sales calls a week. And so essentially it was 2.5 hours of effort times 2 people, and it was twice a week. That's what they were doing. And I said, is there a better way to do these sales calls? Is there a better way to collect the information before the sales call? Is there a better way to do the sales call, scripting it out? And then do you really both need to be on that sales call? What we found out is that you could gather a lot of information upfront. right? So qualifying forms to fill out. And then instead of both of you on the sales call, only one of you really needs to be on the sales call. Instead of making the call last an hour and a half, you can actually make the call only last 45 minutes. And if you script it right, you probably can close higher and you can close at a higher dollar amount if you do it right. And then, of course, you're going to have a better experience afterwards because of the tightness of your sales process. And so that's what we did. We went about, only took a few weeks really, documenting how to do these sales calls. And instead of going way long and chatting way more than you have to for an hour and a half, getting it down to 45 minutes and having better results. And so to quantify what that means is that instead of taking essentially 2.5 hours of work times two people times twice a week, they were able to save about 4 hours of owner working time a week, every week. So if you take that 4 hours of owner time multiplied by twice a week times 52 weeks a year times the value of their time, let's just say their value of their time is conservatively $200 an hour. Well, that's $83,000 a year worth of value. And if they continue to run that system for 10 years, that's $830,000 of value produced by just documenting how they sell better. That's it. So it wasn't a new system. It wasn't totally innovative. It was just the same system they were doing it better. And that was the value they created in a few weeks. And so that's another thing that I want you to kind of get as I'm going through this is that fixing the systems of your business, they don't instantly put money in your pocket in a way that you can see tangibly unless you're willing to think about it and say, hey, you know what? That extra 4 hours a week, that's what that's worth if I reinvest it in the business. And so that was, a big win for them early on. And then, of course, got them excited about using that time to fix more of the systems of their business. And of course, dial it in better, make it more profitable, make it scale more. And of course, eventually do what Sam Carpenter does, which is make more and work less. The last item that I want to spend a little bit of time with is the making more profit. So once you have a system to attract as many leads as you need, and you don't have to be involved in it, and it works again and again and again, and then you have a way to make the sale. In this case, instead of both owners, they went down to one owner, and you have a consistent way to make a sale. So easy for your ideal client that someone else in your business can do it for you. Then it's about how do I actually take, and I think for the folks here, something more creative that you're probably involved in to some degree. How do I make it as efficient as possible, as scalable as profitable, as consistent as possible, as high quality as possible? How do I do that so I can maximize profit? Because there's a lot of operations that go into fulfilling on the promise of the sale, right? And so, again, look at the things you're already doing and try to make them better. Now, with a lot of my clients, we come up with new things and new systems, new things they haven't done before. But the first easiest place to start is just what are you already doing? Can you do it faster, better, higher quality? Can we document it and delegate it and train it? There is a client that I'm still working with actually, who did writing specifically for SEO. So his specialty as a person by himself was writing for high-end clients who wanted content that delivered SEO value. And it was a startup company, essentially just him and his reputation. And so what we did is said, okay, if this is going to scale, we're going to need to separate what makes good writing, what makes the writing, the keyword research, the strategy, the links, the length, the copywriting style, all the different aspects that make your writing successful. How are we going to take those different components and do it at scale? So at this point, he has 150 writers that write under him and his business, and he has a number of verticals he works with. But that didn't happen in a day, right? It happened by him realizing that, okay, there are some very key aspects that go into SEO content writing. And if we're going to charge the highest dollar amount, they're charging over $1,000 to $2,000 per piece of content. If we're going to charge that much money and we're going to do it in a systematic way that's scalable, and we're going to do it for clients who might want 40 articles a month starting next month out of the blue. We're going to need to build a machine. And his machine for making more profit is not just how to do the work, it was also how to find the people to do the work, because he realized that if he was going to scale up and down, he needed to have a system for people. So that's the other aspect of your business too, is how do you make it mechanized and simple enough so that, in his case, he's able to attract, find, train people to do the work. And then how can he make the work simple enough and segmented enough that he can bring different people on and off who can do strategy, who can do research, write the briefs, work with the clients, write the articles, get the reviews, do the editing, post it in a way that's systematic, repeatable, and scalable, right? And that took some time, right? But it's paid off in the millions, but it took some time to do that. And so that's the other aspect, is in your business, how do you fulfill what your clients want? And is there a way to take what is complicated and creative, and it maybe involves lots of client back and forth to get done? How do you simplify, reduce the back and forth, and make it mechanized, right? And that's what he was able to do with his business in the SEO content writing space, which allowed him to free up time to create a separate agency just designed for link building, and then a separate company designed just for taking content and posting it in different websites and different formats, right? So that's what he was able to do with extra time and money based on mechanizing his first business, right? So again, I'm just going to highlight to you that for one, it can be done. Number two, if you step back from your business and see it as a collection of separate systems, you're likely to see there are some systems you're doing right now that all you have to do is just improve them. You need to tweak them. You need to find ways where you can do them faster and more profitably. That's really the message and what we're trying to achieve here at Work the System. So before we get to the Q&A, let me just tell you quickly who I work with. So again, I work with entrepreneurs, business owners who are kind of stuck in the day-to-day, and they do have goals to grow. They do have goals to expand. They do have goals to spend more time with their family, or they have goals maybe to be involved in more charitable endeavors. They have goals to sell their business, to retire, to travel. And they know the way their company's running right now, they can't do it. They're stuck. They're stuck because the company won't operate without them. But if these systems were put in place and they were documented, they would be able to get there, and they would be able to achieve their dreams. And what I do, again, is the one-on-one coaching and the consulting to help them get there. And hopefully those three stories give you a little bit of idea of how that works. So now I'm going to move to Q&A. Is there any questions from the audience about how you might be able to make this happen in your own business? Go ahead and put those in the question box. I think that Hannah will be able to ask those. If you don't have any questions right now, also, you can go to WTSenterprises.com. There you're going to find a summation of this book right here that's downloadable for free. And of course, you'll find my contact information there as well. If you want to work directly with me, it's pretty simple. We just schedule a discovery call. I find out more about your business, find out more about your goals, find out more about where you're stuck. And then we talk about whether it makes sense to work together. And I do that all virtual.
I love that. So I actually have some questions that I've
Sure.
been jotting down as we've been going through this, as we're waiting to see if any come in through the Q&A feature for the webinar. Do you find, I know you talked about the machine at the very beginning of the webinar and the type of machine that a business has in order to get to their end goal. Do you find that when you work with business owners that the perception of their machine is skewed, that they think they might be running the type of machine that they need to get to their goals? In reality, it's actually not?
It depends. I guess it depends. So if they've seen any of my work, they've seen me on other podcasts, they usually are pretty realistic that their machine is broken. They need help, and that's what they're reaching out, right? Like, hey, I want to work with you. I know my machine's broken. But when I introduce this concept to an audience that is not familiar with this at all, they usually think things are running pretty good. They'll say, hey, everyone knows how to do what they do here. We all been working a long time. It's a family business. We already know how to, do this. We're pretty good at it. So I think we're fine. And so that's most people's instinctual reaction. But then when they see how much time, how much money, how much quality, how much they're leaving on the table, like they're missing out on because they haven't actually taken time to work on their systems. And they say, oh, you know what? Maybe I could improve in that area. I never really realized that. And an example you typically share with them is this small parts machine shop I worked with in Michigan, where they had been in business for, I want to say, like 4 decades. The guy was, kind of towards the end of his career, and he went through one of my programs. He said, "I think we're pretty good here. We've got a first shift, we have a second shift. We've been doing this a long time, making these parts." I said, "Just take something that you do every day, and let's just document it, see how it goes, see if we can find some improvements." And he took something that they do every day, which is shifting from first shift to second shift. And I said, well, just document how you do that. And it basically took 15 minutes for them to do that first shift to second shift, because they got off the machines and they had to tell the next people coming online where they were in the machines, where they were with their current clients. There was kind of a handoff process, 15 minutes. And once you wrote it down and we looked at it, we realized actually that could be 5 minutes instead of 15 minutes. And then he started running that. And he said, well, now I saved 10 minutes per person per day. I think they ran 5 days a week, these first shifts and second shifts. He said the value creation of that one procedure was worth $100,000 a year.
Wow.
And he's like, I probably should have done that a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is when people work on their systems, they realize that their base level, just running things by their gut could actually be a lot better, right? That 85% could actually be 99%. And that 85 to 99, 89 or 85% running capacity to 99% capacity is big, but also your customers are willing to pay a premium for that extra level of quality, that extra level of speed, that extra level of reduced mistakes. So in the case of Sam Carpenter's business, it's an answering service. They charge about double what everyone else does. But his customers, they just want to work with the best. And so even though it takes him, half as much effort to do the work as his competition, he can still charge twice as much for the work. So there's a massive amount of profit margin available in what's known as a commodity industry. So, he was telling me that his competitors are getting about 3% profit, and he's getting 30%. Right? It's because of the way he's, produced the highest quality. They make one mistake every 15,000 phone calls, right? So their error rate is so low that whereas someone else, their error rate is one mistake every 50 phone calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they just have continuously improved their systems. And you're going to find that, typically the best customers want to work with the best companies. And because of that, they're willing to pay a little bit more, sometimes a lot more, because it's worth it. And so that's kind of what most companies are missing out on, is that they haven't taken their quality to the next level. And so once the quality goes up, because the systems, I naturally say, if you're going to go from mediocre to a great company, you can also raise your prices. And then, of course, your staff can get those raises they want, and you can probably recruit. So it kind of all works together. And that's why in the beginning I talked about alignment, is that if your strategy aligns with a certain kind of customer for a certain kind of product, it's going to help you recruit a certain kind of team who's going to deliver work in a certain kind of way. If it's aligned straight through, you're going to be in really good shape. And most owners don't take the time to think about that, and therefore they react to the work that's coming in instead of being strategic about the machine they want to build.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like reacting to the work that's coming in is something that I see, especially in a lot of the smaller businesses that I work with, in terms of, I'm glad you spoke about mindset, because I think that comes from a scarcity mindset in terms of feeling like they need to say yes to everything versus a mindset of growth and mindset of abundance. How do you overcome that when you have a business owner come to you that you can tell that that's the place that they're in?
How can I tell? Well, I can tell if they have a variety of clients, right? So the one I mentioned where we went through, try not to mention his name, but the first client example, right, where he was getting leads from a variety of different sources, and he had the medical client, he had the building products client, he had the churches, and so it was very obvious that he was building a business based on who just liked him, who knew him, who responded to him. And so is always say, hey, you're not building a business strategically. You're just You're just taking whoever comes to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, because of that, you're not able to do consistent, high quality work. And so you're not charging what you really could be charging because your work isn't great. And your employees are frustrated because they can't, scale out either. So it was very obvious that he had not picked a clear vertical to work with. And so we had to strategically think about that. And it doesn't mean you need to turn off everything at once with your previous clients. You can stair step that direction, right? You can start to charge more money to your non-ideal clients so that you might get less of them. But if you
Sure.
do get them, you might make more with them and start to steer your marketing and selling activities more towards your ideal clients. So you start to attract and work with more of those. And so over time, you're going to weed out the ones that don't really fit your business model.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, you're going to be able to expand the ones that do fit your business model. But it, I think people are afraid to lose clients, and they're afraid to
Mm-hmm.
lose the diversification. And so kind of the easiest way to do that is through pricing changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be surprised how elastic your pricing can be with customers that you never realized they're willing to go up that high. And so that's what makes the transition easier. Is you might raise the prices 20%, but you only lost 3% of your clients. So it worked out okay, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
and now you can start to use that to reinvest in the client type that you want. And so I try to push people towards those directions, and it generally works.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like sometimes that can be really overwhelming for a business owner, especially once they've identified that things are broken and they do need to focus in on their systems, and that there's a lot that needs to be tackled. Do you have a certain system that you recommend looking at first?
I recommend that owners look at the systems that they're involved in first,
Mm,
because if they're going to lead and steer this company in a different direction, they're going to need to have the capacity and the bandwidth to cast that vision, to manage the project, and to make it happen. And so that's the first thing. I take people through a module. We call it making time,
mm,
and I want to break up the elements that make up their day, personal and business, and how do we free up a couple hours a day, 10 hours a week. I was talking to an attorney right before here, and we were working through the different elements that made up our day. And I said, well, you could delegate that. And she's like, yeah, I guess I could. Okay, that was 2 hours a day, 5 days a week.
that's impactful.
I was like, okay, and then we just figured out a system to do that. And now she can take that time, 10 hours a week, and reinvest it into scaling out her business with actual systems work instead of day-to-day operational work. And so that's what I try to do, is realize that you're replaceable. The things you do, you could find someone else to do them. Now, some things harder than others.
Sure.
And people, they think, well, I'm not replaceable. And the answer is, you're right that you're not going to be able to find someone else to do everything you do,
Sure.
because you're probably doing 100 different things in different departments. And you're right, like that's not going to be possible, but you could find someone to do this one thing over here and this one thing over there. And that's what we start to do, is say, we're going to isolate these separate systems and delegate them. And then you're going to find the time comes back, and then you can invest it into working on your systems. Because the systems, I was trying to show through math here, is the systems, they have they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of value,
Mhm.
but that value is not realized this second.
Sure.
So instead of answering that next phone call, develop a system to answer the phone calls so you don't have
Mhm.
to, right? So it's those kind of things. It's kind of slowing down to speed up.
Mhm.
And it's the non-urgent but important aspect of business building that big companies have realized. That's why they're big. They've
Mhm.
developed systems and documentation and the framework. Small companies haven't realized, because they still think in terms of being the firefighter and handling the day-to-day emergencies. And so that's really what I do, is help entrepreneurs and owners and leaders make that transition, and then help them document those systems so that it sticks. For one, they actually build an asset, and then eventually, they can do like some of my clients that I mentioned, where they actually don't have to be at the business for the business to keep growing and scaling because they've worked in those systems and the systems continue to grow.
Mhm. I know one argument that I've heard in the past, specifically for somebody that I worked for, I've worked in industry for a lot of my career, is that nobody would care about his business the way he cared about his business. And I'm sure that's just that, again, that's a mindset piece in terms of where these systems come into play and really being able to give trust and ownership to the people that you have working these systems. So I love that you mentioned that having the right people in the right seats. Is that an evaluation that happens as a part of building out these processes?
Yeah, definitely. So um, uh, you do have to have good people who will run your processes, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
definitely true. And sometimes when I work with companies, their current staff are good at just putting out fires. They're good at shooting from the hip. They're just good at reacting to things. And as the systems get built, their skill set of just being reactionary isn't needed as much because now you just need stable people who will come in, do the work at high quality and efficiency and effectiveness, and then they'll show up the next day and do it again. And so it's a different kind of person oftentimes as you
Mm-hmm.
move in that direction. It doesn't happen in a day, but that's the direction you want to move towards. But you're going to find that it's much easier to attract high quality people who want to deliver great value when you have higher profit margins. And it's because you can have more money to pay them. And it's easier
Sure.
to develop high profit margins if your company is systematic because there's way less mistakes and there's more margin. But the core document that we work on that helps explain the heart and the soul and the attitudes, the emotions of the business is the general operating principles. And so we do think that each company strategically needs to define what those principles are. Like when I work with family-owned companies, it's like, well, we're a family business. Okay, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the values or the attributes or the attitudes of your family business that have made it great over the years? Let's document those. And so, as part of the recruiting process, part of the onboarding process, training process, we are infusing that value into this person, and they're either going to strive to be that when they're working in our business, or not. And if they're not, then they can't work here because we've realized that strategically that value is what sets us apart. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us great at what we do. And so we want to make sure that when you've identified what those general operating principles are, and then you recruit towards those, you train towards those, you manage towards those, and then you let people go if they don't fit those principles as well. And then you're creating a culture strategically, you're designing it as opposed to just hoping everyone just comes in with these great cultures, attitudes, and they
Mm-hmm.
won't, right? They won't
Sure.
unless because everyone comes in with their own background and their own upbringing. So you really have to clearly define in writing what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're not being clear with them, and they're just going to do what they want as opposed to what the company wants. And so it's really important to have those principles. And then again, that's what allows the owners to step away more because they know that their team is managing and running things by those principles.
I love that. I feel like I've learned a lot, even for myself, in the work that I do every day in terms of systematizing delegation from that perspective. So that way I can work more effectively. And I know that this is super valuable information that I fully intend to share with the business owners that I work with on a daily basis. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this with us. A couple of items. Again, if you want to connect with Josh, for sure, reach out to him on his website. Josh, are you on LinkedIn? I know that is a very popular place for people to reach out to you.
Uh,
So are you on LinkedIn?
I, I am. I don't think I've been on LinkedIn for a year or two, but I
That's
know
okay.
I've got a profile somewhere. But
Okay.
I would tell everyone just go to WTSenterprises.com. It's the simplest place. It's the website, and that's where you get the free content. But yeah, I'm there. I just don't think I'll respond if you send me a message.
Totally fair. Totally fair. I'm not a great LinkedIn user myself, so I completely understand. If you want to keep learning, I'd highly suggest that you subscribe to the Virtual CPA Success Show. You could subscribe to that anywhere you can find podcast. But if YouTube video content is more your thing, you can find us there as well on youtube.com/Summit CPA Group as well. We also have a blog. So we suggest that you subscribe to our blog. We have a lot of great content that's pushed out every single week through our blog. And you can see that link there on your screen. And then, of course, we're always looking for great people. So if you are a great person, reach out to us, or you know somebody who's a great person. We love to plug this in here at the end of our webinars. So thank you again, Josh, for joining us. And thank you again to our attendees for attending our webinar this afternoon.
All right. Thanks, Anna. Thanks,
Great.
everybody.
Thanks so much.